5 hidden dangers of traveling. After 70. Seniors, don't travel until you watch this. Have you ever paused to ask yourself, is traveling after 70 still truly worth it? Discovering new places, embracing unfamiliar cultures. It all sounds wonderful. But the truth is, for older adults, there are hidden risks that most don't realize until it's too late. As we grow older, our bodies and minds begin to respond differently. Travel that once felt effortless in our 40s or 50s can now feel unpredictable, exhausting, even dangerous. Many seniors assume they can still move at the same pace, keep the same energy, and bounce back as they used to. But the reality is, after 70, every journey comes with its own set of challenges. And some can turn your dream getaway into a stressful or even life-threatening experience. In today's video, we'll walk through 5 often overlooked dangers of traveling after 70. From sudden medical emergencies to unexpected financial traps that could quietly drain your savings. By the end, you'll understand what makes travel riskier at this stage of life, and more importantly, how you can protect yourself while still enjoying the world. And stick around, because the final risk we cover is one that most seniors never consider, yet it's one of the biggest reasons people lose time, money, and peace of mind during travel. Now let's begin with danger number 1. 1. A vacation or just exhaustion in disguise. Have you ever come back from a trip feeling like you need a vacation from your vacation? You packed with excitement, you booked all the right places, you even printed the itinerary. But by the end of it, instead of feeling refreshed, you found yourself longing for your own bed, your routine, and just a few quiet days to catch your breath. If that sounds familiar, especially after the age of 70, you're not alone. Richard, a 75-year-old retiree from Des Moines, Iowa, had been planning his West Coast adventure for months. After decades of working hard and rarely taking time off, he and his wife finally gifted themselves a 9-day journey from San Francisco to Yosemite, through Los Angeles, and down to San Diego. It was a trip filled with places they'd always wanted to see, memories they hoped to make. But just 2 days in, things began to unravel. Richard couldn't sleep. His internal clock was completely off. Mornings were slow and heavy, his body aching before the day even started. By day 3, sightseeing felt more like a chore than a joy. He remembers sitting at breakfast and whispering to his wife, "I thought this was supposed to feel good, but I feel like I'm surviving this trip, not enjoying it." There's a real reason this happens, and it has nothing to do with enthusiasm or effort. Studies from the National Sleep Foundation have shown that adults over the age of 65 take nearly twice as long to adjust to new time zones compared to younger adults. Even just a 2-hour time change can throw off sleep patterns for several days. That means your body may still be trying to figure out when to rest while your itinerary demands you be on the move. Dr. Elizabeth Cohen, a geriatric travel specialist at Mayo Clinic, explains that older adults often underestimate how deeply travel affects their natural rhythms. She notes that it's not just about sleep. It's about how your body recovers from long flights, how it handles stress, and how quickly it bounces back after long days. In our younger years, all it took was a quick nap or a good night's sleep. But now it takes planning, pacing, and giving ourselves permission to rest. And when rest is skipped or cut short, the effects compound. Sleep disruption doesn't just make you feel tired. It affects your balance, slows your reflexes, and lowers your immunity. It can make even simple things like walking through a busy airport or stepping off a bus feel unstable. Dehydration, common during long travel days, can lead to confusion and physical weakness, especially in warmer climates. Eating off schedule, skipping meals, or grabbing something quick and unfamiliar can throw digestion off completely. And if you're living with any chronic condition like high blood pressure, arthritis, or diabetes, all of these factors can silently aggravate what your body is already managing on its own. But this doesn't mean you shouldn't travel. It simply means you have to travel differently, more consciously, more gently, and with more compassion for your own pace. Start by giving your body time to recover. Build rest days into your itinerary. Entire mornings or afternoons with no commitments, just space to breathe. Don't try to pack 5 sites into one day. Choose 1 or 2 meaningful experiences and give yourself permission to linger, to savor them fully. Prioritize your sleep the way you would at home. Try to keep a consistent bedtime. If the hotel room is noisy, bring earplugs or use a white noise app. If time zones are hard to adjust to, give yourself a couple of light days at the start. Don't plan anything demanding the moment you land. Stay hydrated, even when you're not thirsty. Airports, planes, and dry climates can pull moisture from your body before you even realize it. Eat lighter, especially at night. Rich late meals can disturb your sleep and leave you sluggish the next day. And if the idea of constantly moving from city to city feels overwhelming, consider a slower kind of travel. Cruises, all-inclusive resorts, or even guided tours with built-in rest time can offer structure without pushing your limits. If possible, book morning flights. Your body adjusts better earlier in the day than it does at night. At this age, a vacation isn't about checking boxes or racing from one attraction to the next. It's about choosing what really matters. Watching the sunrise with your spouse, having coffee in a quiet town square, taking a slow walk on the beach with no place to be. You deserve that kind of experience, not one that depletes you, but one that fills you back up. Not one that leaves you counting the days until you can go home, but one that makes you wish it could last just a little longer. If you've ever felt this kind of exhaustion creep into your travels, that sense of your body falling behind your plans, you're not alone. I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Sharing it might help someone else feel less alone in theirs. And if this section spoke to you, if it helped in some way, feel free to tap that like button so I know we're walking this journey together. Now we've talked about physical fatigue, the kind that builds up slowly but weighs you down like a heavy coat. But there's another danger that often arrives without warning, a single misstep, a moment of imbalance that can change everything. Let's talk about what happens when a fall turns a vacation into a long road to recovery. Danger number 1. 2. The sudden blow to the heart. When we think of travel in our later years, we often imagine scenic views, soft ocean breezes, and time finally spent on ourselves. We plan trips the way we once dreamed about retirement, peaceful, earned, and well-deserved. But for some, a trip meant to celebrate life can suddenly become a fight for it. And when it comes to our hearts, that moment can come faster than we think. James, a 74-year-old Navy veteran from Charleston, South Carolina, had never really been the type to sit still. Even after retirement, he stayed active. Morning walks, volunteering at the local community center, helping neighbors with odd jobs. So when his wife suggested they take a cruise through the Caribbean to mark their 50th wedding anniversary, James didn't hesitate. He felt good, strong, capable. I may be older, he joked, but I can still outwalk some of the young ones. They boarded the ship in Miami with excitement in their eyes and a suitcase full of plans. The first few days were everything they hoped for: clear skies, good food, gentle waves, and evenings spent watching the horizon melt into the ocean. But on the 4th morning, something changed. James woke with a tightness in his chest. He assumed it was indigestion from last night's rich meal, but within the hour he felt dizzy, clammy, and weak. His wife found him seated on the balcony, pale and barely responsive. The ship's medical team did what they could, but they weren't equipped for a full cardiac event. They had to call for emergency evacuation. It took hours to reach a port. By the time James made it to a hospital, he had already suffered a mild heart attack. He survived, but the emotional toll stayed with him longer than the physical one. "I thought I was fine," he later told his doctor. "I thought I could handle it. I didn't know how close I came to not coming back." Stories like James's aren't rare. In fact, according to the American Heart Association, adults over 70 have a significantly increased risk of cardiac events while traveling, especially during long trips, flights, or changes in climate and routine. Factors like dehydration, irregular meals, heat exposure, and even emotional excitement can quietly strain the heart. Dr. Sandra Lynn, a cardiologist at Johns Hopkins, explains that the aging heart doesn't always show warning signs the way a younger one might. What feels like fatigue or indigestion could be the beginning of something far more serious. Most seniors don't realize how quickly a stable condition can shift, she says. And unfortunately, when you're far from your medical team, the consequences can escalate fast. It's not just the heart itself, it's the distance from care. On a cruise ship, in a remote village, even in a foreign city, access to emergency cardiac services can be delayed. And when it comes to the heart, timing is everything. Every minute matters. The difference between a manageable scare and permanent damage, or worse, can be just a few miles too far from help. But this isn't about fear. It's about preparation. If you're over 70 and planning a trip, especially to a place where medical care might not be immediately available, take the time to talk to your doctor first. Not just a quick checkup, but a full conversation. Ask the hard questions. Am I stable enough to travel? Are there warning signs I should watch for? What medications should I carry? What happens if I need emergency care abroad? Bring a printed summary of your medical history. Keep your medications in your carry-on. Learn how to recognize the symptoms of a heart attack. Not just the Hollywood version with dramatic pain, but the real ones older adults often feel. Shortness of breath, cold sweats, nausea, lightheadedness. And please, don't assume travel insurance covers everything. Make sure your policy includes emergency evacuation, hospital admission abroad, and even transport back home if needed. James was lucky. He got the care he needed, and he made it back home to his family. But he later said something that still echoes in my mind. I thought adventure meant doing something big, he said. Now I know it also means doing it smart, because coming back to the people you love, that's the real destination. If you've ever had a health scare while traveling, or if you're currently worried about how your body will handle your next trip, I want you to know those concerns are valid. You're not being overly cautious. You're being wise. And if this part means something to you, if it helps you in any way, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to the Golden Wise Elders channel, so I know we're walking this journey together. Coming up next, we'll talk about a danger that has nothing to do with the heart, but can just as easily leave a lasting impact: the risk of falling while far from home, and how one misstep can change the course of your journey in ways you never expected. Danger number 1. 3. The sudden blow to the heart. When we think of travel in our later years, we often imagine scenic views, soft ocean breezes, and time finally spent on ourselves. We plan trips the way we once dreamed about retirement: peaceful, earned, and well-deserved. But for some, a trip meant to celebrate life can suddenly become a fight for it. And when it comes to our hearts, that moment can come faster than we think. James, a 74-year-old Navy veteran from Charleston, South Carolina, had never really been the type to sit still. Even after retirement, he stayed active. Morning walks, volunteering at the local community center, helping neighbors with odd jobs. So when his wife suggested they take a cruise through the Caribbean to mark their 50th wedding anniversary, James didn't hesitate. He felt good, strong, capable. I may be older, he joked, but I can still outwalk some of the young ones. They boarded the ship in Miami with excitement in their eyes and a suitcase full of plans. The first few days were everything they hoped for: clear skies, good food, gentle waves, and evenings spent watching the horizon melt into the ocean. But on the 4th morning, something changed. James woke with a tightness in his chest. He assumed it was indigestion from last night's rich meal. But within the hour, he felt dizzy, clammy, and weak. His wife found him seated on the balcony, pale and barely responsive. The ship's medical team did what they could, but they weren't equipped for a full cardiac event. They had to call for emergency evacuation. It took hours to reach a port. By the time James made it to a hospital, he had already suffered a mild heart attack. He survived, but the emotional toll stayed with him longer than the physical one. I thought I was fine, he later told his doctor. I thought I could handle it. I didn't know how close I came to not coming back. Stories like James's aren't rare. In fact, according to the American Heart Association, adults over 70 have a significantly increased risk of cardiac events while traveling, especially during long trips, flights, or changes in climate and routine. Factors like dehydration, irregular meals, heat exposure, and even emotional excitement can quietly strain the heart. Dr. Sandra Lynn, a cardiologist at Johns Hopkins, explains that the aging heart doesn't always show warning signs the way a younger one might. What feels like fatigue or indigestion could be the beginning of something far more serious. Most seniors don't realize how quickly a stable condition can shift, she says. And unfortunately, when you're far from your medical team, the consequences can escalate fast. It's not just the heart itself, it's the distance from care. On a cruise ship, in a remote village, even in a foreign city, access to emergency cardiac services can be delayed. And when it comes to the heart, timing is everything. Every minute matters. The difference between a manageable scare and permanent damage, or worse, can be just a few miles too far from help. But this isn't about fear. It's about preparation. If you're over 70 and planning a trip, especially to a place where medical care might not be immediately available, take the time to talk to your doctor first. Not just a quick checkup, but a full conversation. Ask the hard questions. Am I stable enough to travel? Are there warning signs I should watch for? What medications should I carry? What happens if I need emergency care abroad? Bring a printed summary of your medical history. Keep your medications in your carry-on. Learn how to recognize the symptoms of a heart attack. Not just the Hollywood version with dramatic pain, but the real ones older adults often feel. Shortness of breath, cold sweats, nausea, lightheadedness. And please, don't assume travel insurance covers everything. Make sure your policy includes emergency evacuation, hospital admission abroad, and even transport back home if needed. James was lucky. He got the care he needed, and he made it back home to his family. But he later said something that still echoes in my mind. I thought adventure meant doing something big, he said. Now I know it also means doing it smart, because coming back to the people you love, that's the real destination. If you've ever had a health scare while traveling, or if you're currently worried about how your body will handle your next trip, I want you to know those concerns are valid. You're not being overly cautious. You're being wise. And if this story resonates with you, I'd love to hear your experience. You never know who else you might help by sharing it. Coming up next, we'll talk about a danger that has nothing to do with the heart, but can just as easily leave a lasting impact. The risk of falling while far from home, and how one misstep can change the course of your journey in ways you never expected. Danger number 1. 4. The misstep that changes everything. Some dangers don't come with warning signs. They don't build up over days or announce themselves with pain. Sometimes they happen in a second, in the quiet act of stepping off a curb, walking down a staircase, or reaching for something just out of grasp. For many older adults, one fall is all it takes to change everything. Linda, a 78-year-old widow from Santa Fe, New Mexico, had always prided herself on staying active. Every morning, she walked around her neighborhood with a group of close friends. She traveled before, both in the U and overseas, and had never once felt limited by her age. So when her daughter surprised her with a trip to Italy, Linda was thrilled. It was something she had always dreamed of: cobblestone streets, centuries-old cathedrals, tiny cafes tucked into alleyways. She packed her most comfortable shoes, carried her own bags, and promised herself she'd keep up, no matter what. But dreams and reality don't always align. On the 5th day of the trip, while strolling through a narrow street in Florence, Linda stepped off a low curb just as the afternoon light faded. The stone was uneven. Her foot caught. In an instant, she lost her balance and fell sideways, landing hard on her hip. The pain was immediate and unforgiving. Bystanders helped her up, and within hours, she was in a local hospital, alone, frightened, and facing surgery for a fractured hip. That single fall ended the trip. But more than that, it changed Linda's life for the next 6 months. She returned to the U.S. in a wheelchair, unable to climb stairs in her own home. Physical therapy became part of her daily routine. Her independence, once so cherished, now felt distant and fragile. And perhaps most heartbreaking of all, she no longer felt confident traveling, even to places nearby. What happened to Linda is far more common than most travelers realize. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, falls are the leading cause of injury among adults over 65. Every year, more than 3 million older Americans end up in the emergency room due to a fall. And those numbers rise sharply when unfamiliar terrain, jet lag, and fatigue come into play. Travel by its nature increases the risk. Many destinations feature uneven sidewalks, poor lighting, slippery hotel bathroom floors, or narrow stairs without handrails. Add to that the disorientation from jet lag, the swelling that comes from long flights, or the stiffness of arthritic joints, and the body simply doesn't respond the way it used to. Even something as routine as dragging a suitcase over a curb can become a hazard. But the truth is, most falls are preventable, with awareness, preparation, and a few small changes in how we move through the world. If you're planning a trip, take a moment to consider the environment you'll be in. Ask yourself honestly, is this destination walkable? Does it have accommodations for limited mobility? Are the hotels equipped with elevators, sturdy handrails, or non-slip surfaces in the showers? Choose comfort over adventure if it means protecting your long-term independence. Before you leave, talk to your doctor or physical therapist. Discuss your balance, any medications that might make you dizzy, and exercises you can do to improve coordination. Invest in supportive footwear with strong soles and ankle support, even if it doesn't match your outfit. If your knees or hips have been stiff lately, consider using a walking stick or cane. There's no shame in protecting your body. In fact, it's an act of self-respect. Most of all, listen to what your body tells you. If you're tired, slow down. If your legs feel unsteady, sit and rest. You don't need to see everything to have a beautiful trip. Sometimes, the richest experiences come from sitting still, watching life pass by slowly in a quiet plaza, or enjoying a long lunch without the pressure to move on. Linda eventually healed. She walks again, and one day, she may travel again. But her story is a reminder, a powerful one, that it only takes a second for everything to change. And that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is not to keep pushing forward, but to pause, look down at where we step, and choose safety over speed. If you or someone you love has experienced a fall while traveling, or if you're worried about it happening, you're not alone. Your concern is valid, and it's okay to make choices that prioritize your safety, even if it means skipping a steep staircase for the elevator nearby. Before we dive into the next story, I want to take a moment to invite you. If this video has been resonating with you so far, if it's made you think twice about how to plan safer, smarter travels in your golden years, please consider supporting our community by hitting that like button. Share this video with someone you care about who might be planning a trip. And don't forget to subscribe to the Golden Wise Elders channel, where we talk about real-life health, wisdom, and well-being for seniors who still believe in living fully, just more consciously. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your experience could be the exact story someone else needs to hear today. Up next, we'll explore a danger that's even more subtle. One that doesn't trip us physically, but can just as easily derail an entire trip. The silent threat of what we eat. Because sometimes the biggest risks are hiding in plain sight, on our very own dinner plate. Part 4. The disruptor on your plate. Now let's continue. Because sometimes the biggest threats to our health while traveling don't come from long flights or crowded streets. They come from something much simpler, something we welcome 3 times a day without question: the food on our plate. Eleanor, a vibrant 72-year-old retired teacher from Jacksonville, Florida, had always prided herself on being adventurous, especially when it came to food. Her friends called her the fearless fork, always trying the spiciest dish on the menu, always up for street food at local festivals. So when she finally took a long-awaited trip to Oaxaca, Mexico, she didn't hold back. She wanted to taste it all: the mole, the ceviche, the fresh fruit juices from roadside stands. But on day 3, things took a turn. After trying a seafood salad at a bustling night market, Eleanor woke up in the middle of the night with violent stomach cramps. Within hours, she was nauseated, dehydrated, and unable to stand. Her daughter rushed her to a local clinic where she was diagnosed with severe food poisoning, likely caused by raw shellfish washed in unfiltered water. She spent the next 2 days on an IV, in a language she didn't speak, in a clinic she hadn't planned to visit. Her vacation, once full of color and life, had shrunk down to a quiet, pale room with fluorescent lights and a single fan buzzing overhead. Stories like Eleanor's aren't just unlucky, they're increasingly common. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, older adults are significantly more vulnerable to food-borne illnesses. Our immune systems, like our bones and muscles, naturally weaken with age. Digestion slows down. Stomach acid, which helps kill harmful bacteria, decreases. That means foods that might cause mild discomfort to a younger traveler can lead to serious complications for someone over 70. What starts as a simple upset stomach can quickly escalate into dehydration, infection, or even hospitalization. Travel introduces us to unfamiliar bacteria, water sources, and food preparation methods. And while culinary exploration can be one of the great joys of experiencing a new culture, it also comes with hidden risks. Foods that haven't been properly refrigerated, fruits and vegetables rinsed in untreated tap water, or meats that are undercooked can all become carriers of harmful bacteria like Salmonella, E. coli, or Listeria. But this isn't about fear. It's about making mindful choices. There's a way to enjoy the beauty of global cuisine without sacrificing your health along the way. Start by eating foods that are fully cooked and served hot. Avoid raw dishes like sashimi, ceviche, or salads unless you're certain they've been prepared safely. Stick to bottled or properly filtered water, not just for drinking, but for brushing your teeth, making ice, or rinsing fruit. Choose restaurants that are busy and well-reviewed, not just by tourists, but by locals. And if you're going off the beaten path, consider bringing a small emergency kit with medications for stomach upset, rehydration salts, and a note from your doctor listing any allergies or chronic conditions. And here's a tip many overlook. If your stomach is sensitive at home, don't expect it to become suddenly adventurous abroad. Respect your body's limits. Don't feel pressured to try something just because it's authentic. Authenticity isn't worth 3 days in a hotel bathroom or worse, a hospital bed. Eleanor made a full recovery, but she often tells her friends now, it's not the dish you remember, it's how you felt after. And trust me, no flavor is worth feeling like you're falling apart in a foreign place. Food should be a source of joy, not regret. It should bring us together, not break us down. If you've ever had a similar experience, or if you have tips for safe eating while traveling, please share them below. The Golden Wise Elders community is built on shared wisdom, and your voice matters here. Up next, we'll move beyond the physical and explore one of the most overlooked dangers of all. It's not something you can see or touch, but it can quietly undo a lifetime of savings, security, and peace of mind. Let's talk about the financial risks that come with travel after 70 and how to protect yourself before the next ticket is even booked. Danger number 1. 5. The ticket you can't refund. There's a risk that doesn't come with a fever, a fall, or a sleepless night. It doesn't show up in your blood pressure or your balance. It shows up in your bank account. And for many seniors, it shows up far too late, after the trip has ended, after the damage is done. George, a careful, thoughtful 76-year-old from Portland, Oregon, had always been good with money. A retired accountant, he budgeted every trip to the last dollar. So when he finally decided to splurge on a vacation to a tropical island, he did everything by the book, or so he thought. He found a beautiful deal online, a beachfront villa, full amenities, half the price of the big-name hotels. The pictures were stunning. The reviews seemed glowing. He booked it, paid in full. And when he arrived, there was nothing there. The address didn't exist. The listing was fake. The money was gone. George ended up spending twice what he'd planned, scrambling to find a last-minute room. What was supposed to be a relaxing escape became a stressful mess. And even months later, the frustration in his voice still lingers. It wasn't just about the money, he said. It was the feeling of being fooled, of being vulnerable. It's a feeling no one likes to talk about, especially older adults who've lived a life full of experience and wisdom. But the truth is, scammers often target seniors. Fake travel deals, fraudulent vacation rentals, phony insurance coverage. The internet has made it easier than ever to book a trip, and easier than ever to get taken advantage of. But scams are only part of the financial risk. Many seniors assume their regular health insurance will cover them abroad. It often doesn't. A simple ER visit overseas can cost thousands. An emergency evacuation? Tens of thousands. Add to that trip cancellations, missed flights, lost luggage, and even currency exchange errors. And suddenly, a well-planned vacation becomes a financial nightmare. Even those with the best intentions can get caught off guard. Sometimes health issues arise right before a trip, forcing last-minute cancellations. Without the right travel insurance, that can mean forfeiting airline tickets, hotel bookings, and cruise deposits, all non-refundable. So what can be done? Start by booking through trusted, reputable sources. Don't click on random ads. Don't trust deals that seem too good to be true, because they almost always are. Look for real customer reviews. Call the property or provider to confirm details. Double-check websites. Verify addresses. If you're unsure, ask a tech-savvy friend or family member to help. Before you travel, talk to your insurance provider. Ask clearly, am I covered abroad? If the answer is no or unclear, invest in comprehensive travel insurance that includes medical emergencies, trip cancellation, evacuation, and even repatriation if needed. It might feel like an extra expense, but it's often the difference between peace of mind and panic. George eventually got past the frustration. He learned. And he now tells everyone in his travel group, the price of a trip is one thing. The price of protection, that's your real investment. Because the most expensive thing isn't the vacation itself. It's the unexpected. It's the moment you thought everything was under control, and it wasn't. If you've ever lost money on a trip or know someone who's been scammed, I want you to know you're not alone and you didn't fail. The world has changed. The rules have changed. The world has. And just like we adapt our travel pace, we also need to adapt how we protect ourselves. If this story spoke to something you've been through or something you're afraid of, please let us know in the comments. The Golden Wise Elders community is built on sharing, learning, and supporting each other. And if you found any value in this video, if a single story helped you rethink a future trip, please give this video a like, share it with someone you care about. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Golden Wise Elders channel. We're here to walk with you through every chapter, every journey, every choice that matters. As we close today's conversation, remember this: aging doesn't mean giving up on joy. It means traveling with wisdom. It means protecting what you've earned. And it means choosing not just where you want to go, but how you want to feel when you get there. Stay curious, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next story. So here we are, at the end of this journey together. And if you've stayed with me this far, I hope these stories and reflections have sparked something deeper within you. We've explored 5 of the most overlooked risks seniors face when traveling: sudden heart emergencies, food-related illnesses, travel fatigue, falls that change everything, and the financial pitfalls that too often go unseen. These aren't just warnings, they're reminders that after 70, we don't travel to prove anything. We travel to embrace what matters most. At this stage in life, every trip is a gift, but it's a gift that asks for care, for planning, and for a little more tenderness toward our own limits. Travel after 70 is absolutely possible, but it's not about going fast. It's about going wisely. It's not about seeing more. It's about seeing deeply. It's not about chasing more miles, but about cherishing more moments. So before you pack that bag, before you hit book now, take a pause. Ask yourself, am I prepared for the road ahead? Have I protected my health, my peace of mind, and my financial well-being? Because the most important ticket on any journey is your health. Everything else is optional. If this video spoke to you in any way, if it gave you something to think about, or brought you comfort, or reminded you of someone you care about, please give it a like. Share it with a fellow traveler. Leave a comment with your own wisdom. We read every one. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the Golden Wise Elders channel and tap the little bell so you never miss a story that could guide your next step. Thank you for being here, for listening, for caring. We'll see you again soon with another story, another truth, and another step toward living well with grace and wisdom. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and above all, stay ready for the journey that matters most.